Hi, I'm Anna Hoffman, and welcome to this episode of Data Exposed. Today, I'm super excited because we are live streaming on a bunch of platforms to bring you all the latest news across Azure SQL and SQL Server since the beginning of the year. So we've got 3 months of updates to share with you all, and I've brought a ton of super exciting and special guests from the product group. I'm going to bring them up to say hello really fast before we get started. So as you see, many familiar faces that I'm bringing up. Hi, folks. We're super excited to have you here.
Hey.
Hey, Anna.
Hello.
Hey, Anna. Hello.
Oh, hi, Anna, everyone.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, everybody.
Hello.
Awesome. So as you all can see, we've got a lot of great experts here. So while we're going to talk about different sections, and I'm going to bring each of them back on as we go, I want you to know that all these folks are backstage. So wherever you're streaming from, whether it's Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, or the Microsoft Reactor, or somewhere else you found us streaming, if you comment there, we see all those comments and we can take your questions in real time on the chat. And we can also get some of them addressed on if it relates to the person talking. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and get started. What do we have? So if you are streaming in, like I said, just ask your questions wherever you have questions. This is part of Data Exposed Live. And let's get right into some updates. Oh, well, you already met our experts, so you know all the people that are here. So stay tuned and feel free to ask your questions as we go. With that being said, we're going to get right into the announcements. And just so everyone knows, we're going to cover a lot of stuff today, but everything has been posted in a blog that just went live at aka.ms/news update. So if you missed something or you want one of the links from one of the presenters today, feel free to go ahead to that link, share it with your friends, and get all the updates and where to learn more. So we typically go through all the different products, all of them for SQL Server and Azure SQL, and we're going to start with SQL Server on Azure VMs. Now, there's really just one big update in this space in the past couple of months, and this is a pretty big update from a performance perspective. And this was the premium SSD v2 storage that you can now provision from within the Azure portal. And just in case you haven't heard of this, but you're using SQL Server on Azure VMs, this one improves your performance, reliability, and scalability. And specifically, some of the exciting things are like the level of throughput that you can get here, 1,200 megabytes per second, 80K IOPS, and up to 64 terabytes. So lots of interesting stuff there. If you want to learn more about it, again, I put a link to this in the blog. Moving right along, we're going to move into Azure SQL Managed Instance. And for this topic, I brought a couple of folks from the product group. So let me bring them on for you today. I brought Vladimir and George. Vladimir, George, thanks so much for joining us on Data Exposed. Happy to have you here and tell us all about what's new in Azure SQL Managed Instance.
Hi, Anna. Thanks for having us. Great to be here.
Hello.
So our first major announcement is the next generation general purpose storage tier in Azure SQL Managed Instance, which is in preview since about 2 weeks ago. The next generation general purpose tier brings a number of enhancements across broadly 3 areas. First off, the storage performance is significantly improved, both in terms of the IOPS and throughput you're getting, but also in terms of the lower latency that enables significantly more workloads to actually use managed instance. You can now use it for your more demanding IO workloads. In addition to this, there's much more storage size going from 16 terabytes to 32, and also 500 databases up from 100, allowing you to migrate your large applications and or to consolidate some of your existing servers onto a single instance. And then finally, we're trying our best to further enhance the resource flexibility, which is the essentially opportunity for you to independently resize the storage size from storage performance using the new and first time in Azure SQL IOPS slider, plus the ability to have many more vCore click stops to fine-tune the vCore needs for your workload. This is essentially an in-place upgrade, a seamless replacement for general purpose tier, And we're going to go into a little bit more detail. Anna, next slide, please. So in terms of performance, and then the tables are all going to look the same. We're going to compare the current general purpose to the next-gen general purpose across a number of areas. In terms of storage performance, the I/O latency is dramatically lower, from 5 to 10 milliseconds to 3 to 4. But it's not just that. It's also you're getting significantly higher number of IOPS, significantly better throughput. And then finally, there's no per database log throughput limits, allowing you to essentially easily use up the instance limits for any or all of your databases together. One more click, Anna, please. We've already mentioned the 32 terabyte storage, again, doubling from 16 terabytes and providing significantly more headroom. The 500 databases is also very much a great piece of news and something that many of our customers have been asking for a number of years. And then the number of files you can put in your instance is significantly larger. This is not longer going to be a bottleneck. And now you're also getting 128 vCores instead of 80 to migrate some of your large applications easily. And then the final slide talks about the flexibility to right-size the resources in Azure SQL for your particular workload. So one of the major limitations of general purpose was that each file had separate performance limits, each database file. This is now gone. So each and every of your files can use up to the full instance limits in any of the resource categories, which is much easier to use and similar how SQL Server works on premises or in VMs. There's many more click stops of vCores, and then finally, the new IOPS slider will allow you to add additional performance to the workloads that need that extra juice upfront. I'll wrap up with this. You can go ahead and try it out. It works for the free tier SQL MI offer, so essentially, there's pretty much no excuses not to try the new SQL MI general purpose next gen.
Awesome. That's so amazing, Vladimir. Thanks so much for coming on and sharing that with us. I have two questions, one from the audience and one from myself. The first question is someone's just asking, what is a click stop? If you could tell us really briefly.
Right. So today, you have only 8 options for vCore sizes. That's 4, 8, 16, 24, 32, 40, 64, and 80 vCores. So you can choose out of the 8 predefined vCore sizes. This is now updated to 16. So you have significantly more choices to pick the right vCore size for your database, or for your instance, sorry.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Hopefully that helped the viewer. Second question I have is, if you're using general purpose today for your instance, how do you get this next gen general purpose?
It's very easy to do so. There's just 2 clicks on the Azure portal. You can opt into the next gen preview, and it's a fully online operation. You can easily try out and easily go back if you want to. So very easy and flexible.
Nice, cool, awesome. Thanks so much, Vladimir.
You bet.
All right, moving over to George, instance pools. Now, before we talk about it, I have to say, I was super excited when we first started talking about instance pools. It was a while ago, so I was really excited to hear, hey, we're kind of bringing this back, doing a refresh. So tell us, what's going on in the instance pool space?
Yeah, well, instance pools present a deployment option. Basically, this is the option that allows you to provision small 2 vCore instances, also larger instances. And as a reminder, the smallest SQL MI that can be provisioned as a standalone today is a 4 vCore. So with instance pools, these 2 vCore instances are really a perfect and a cost-effective option when moving a small SQL Server's instances to Azure. And instances within a pool have another advantage. They provision faster than standalone instances. Today, they can provision in less than 5 minutes. As you said, SQL MI pools have been in a preview for a while now. And recently, we released a new set of features that round out their feature set. And here on the slide, I mentioned most important. Now, an instance pool can be updated after its creation, which means it's possible to change its compute size, license type, hardware type, and things like that. Instances can now be moved in and out of instance pool without restrictions. That was not the case before. And we also added support in Azure portal for instance pools creation and instance creation within a pool. Finally, we added support for premium hardware and enabled fast instance provisioning. On the next slide, we have an example how one can create an instance within a pool, in this case, a 2-week instance. Basically, it's the same experience, a known experience for create Azure SQL MI. You just see now additional option if you want to have the instance created within an instance pool, and then you choose a pool that satisfies certain criteria, and you can create the instance directly into that pool. With that, I'm looking forward to see our customers using instance pools, and because they've been asking us for a while about these new features, and looking forward to feedback.
Awesome, cool. George, thanks so much for coming on, and we're excited to see this update. And it looks like it's really easy to get access to this too. If you just want to try it out, you can do it right from within the Azure portal. George,
right.
Vladimir, thanks again so much for coming on the show. We're going to move them backstage, but folks, if you have questions, feel free to let us know wherever you're streaming into, or you can find these folks, and we link to some blogs, of course. All right. We're going to move on. So I've got some of these summaries here. I think they mentioned most of the updates here, a couple things related to zone redundancy or database copy that we might have missed. So if you're interested in any of those things, be sure to check out the blog. Okay, we're going to move on to Azure SQL Database. And we've got a lot of updates in this space, so we're going to move right along. We're going to start with Copilot in Azure SQL Database. Now, this one has got a lot of hype attached to it. So I'm going to bring on Joe Sack to talk a little bit more about it with us. Hey, Joe.
Hey, Anna. Good to see you.
Great to see you. So tell us all about it.
Absolutely. So we're announcing 2 different experiences. We actually announced it at SQL Bits, and both of the experiences are in the portal. So the first thing is Microsoft Copilot for Azure, which actually previewed last November, has a lot of different skills across different Azure offerings. And we are now adding Azure SQL Database skills to it. So think about the Bob in a box or Aaron Stellato in a box too, of, hey, database administration, slow performance issues, missing indexes. Just think about a coworker that you can ask questions about when you're in the context of your database blade. So that's the first one. And then the second experience we're announcing is a natural language to SQL experience. And that's going to be in the Azure SQL Query Editor. So I could just ask questions like, show me sales from last week, or give me a ranked list of the top salespeople, and then it'll translate it into T-SQL.
Awesome. Cool. This is really exciting. I'm sure people have a ton of questions and want to get their hands on this. I love that you pointed to our Data Exposed episode, but what else can people do to get engaged and learn more?
Absolutely. So on the next slide, you actually see we had the sign up. So if you've participated in the early adoption program before, for example, the last one was SQL Server 2022, this is similar. So you sign up, you give a little bit of information about your use case, and then we'll add waves of different users in and customers in. And we've already started the first onboarding. We have a second batch waiting in the wings. And the idea here is just to get a lot of close interaction and feedback in these early days before we go to a full public preview.
Awesome. Amazing. So folks, you heard it here, probably not first, but if you're hearing it here first, be sure to learn more at aka.ms/SQL Copilot. We'll also put a link to it in the blog, which is available. You can check out Joe and I's video on this, which also includes some really cool demos of kind of the art of the possible at this point. So Joe, thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks, Anna.
Awesome. Cool stuff. And we're really just getting started in this space. So it's really exciting to see some of the things starting to break through. This is the Copilot. Yeah, awesome. We're glad you're looking forward to it. All right, so next we're going to talk about mirroring databases in Fabric, another much anticipated release. And for that, I'm going to bring on Idris. Idris and I were just at the Fabric conference talking about this, a ton of interest in it. So Idris, over to you. Tell us all about what this is and what people are doing.
Sure, Anna. Thank you. Can you hear me well, Anna?
Yep.
Excellent. So thank you about having me on the show. This is about mirroring databases. It's just super exciting feature which we just launched and announced in public preview last week at the Fabric conference. Essentially what mirroring is, it allows you to take your data, which is there in your operational database in SQL DB, and make it available in near real time in Fabric, which is our analytics platform. And the way it does is it takes your copy of your data, what is changes, your initial snapshot, and it does it in a manner without impacting your operational workload. And it's essentially one of the other things it does is it replicates into what you're seeing in this diagram. You might have seen if you have heard about Fabric, it brings into everything into one lake. One lake is where all the data from all the sources come in and get stored into the Delta Parquet format. And once the data is in the one lake, which is the heart of the whole Fabric platform, all the other engines in Fabric light up with the data. So in this case, mirroring the database from SQL DB serves three purposes. One is you do not have to do any kind of ETL workloads, so zero ETL, no ETL. The second is it reduces your overall total cost of ownership. And third is it enables faster time to insights. And by doing this, you're separating the operational workloads and the analytics workloads. And just to add a little bit of this, the context, there's zero computing cost to replicate your data from your source database into Fabric. And also you're provided free storage up to the amount of capacity which you have purchased for Fabric. Now, any compute you use on the Fabric side, once the data is in there, like Power BI or data engineering and notebooks, etc., you will incur those standardized costs against the capacity. But this is an awesome feature. There's a link to the blog on this one. And with that, I would like to really show a demo
Awesome.
about this capability. So Anna, if you can go to the next slide,
Yep.
we can click through the demo. So here we have, we're showing you the Azure SQL database. In this case, it's an e-commerce database from our AdventureWorks sample database. And you can see we have the database in there. We have a service tier for general purpose. It's a serverless 4-core, and we have set this is our SQL Server. And as you can see, there are some standard operational database. There's some writes going on. There's some reads going on. And as you can see on the CPU, is spinning out there, and you can actually see some activity going on there. So let's see how we can get this data replicated into Fabric. So here I'm in Fabric. This is a workspace, and I'm going to go create a new a mirror database. So I click new, I go into the data warehouse gallery, and you can see a tile for mirrored Azure SQL database. I'm going to provide a name. You can provide a custom name to it. It could be specific to your line of business. In this case, we're going to say AdventureWorks Mirror. And there you go. It creates the mirror database, and it's going to ask and say, hey, what would you like to connect to? Which database would you like to connect to? In this case, I already have created an existing connection. Otherwise, you can create a new connection and connect to your database and provide the credentials, etc. Now, before I say mirror the entire database, there's an option. You can either mirror all the data, or you can selectively choose certain points of data. And you can see as you're selecting, there are certain warnings and certain things where you can or cannot replicate. And those are essentially certain columns, certain fields which are not yet supported, or that they're going to be lighting up soon. Now, once we start and say I'm going to mirror all the database, you can see that all your underlying operational data from SQL database is now available. As you can see, let's pick one of those. The product table is around 16,587 rows. Let's go and check in our Azure Query Studio and see and confirm if the counts are correct. And there it is, exactly the same data. Now let's go ahead and do a little bit and add some, new data, a new table, and see how that reflects as well. So now all this thing we did without setting up any kind of infrastructure, no compute, everything was set up and managed. So here we go. Let's go create a new table in case table employee, and add some data to it. And let's go and confirm to make sure it's available. The table has been created, and here it is. The employee table has been created. And let's see the number of rows. We have around. And let's go ahead and see if the number of rows here matches the number of rows which you just saw there. And there you go. Go back into the monitoring capability, which is where you can actually see the number of rows. And you can see that besides just adding the employee table, we've also added some product data. So we added around 10,000 rows of product data, and you can see the number of employees, the 100 employees we just inserted. So as you can see, this was very seamless. Without you doing anything, the data changes which were taking place automatically in near real time is replicated to Fabric. Also, it does support, as of today, adding a column and dropping a column of a DDL, and that does it seamlessly into Fabric as well. So back to you, Anna. Hopefully this was a little helpful and provide a little more context on mirroring. There's a lot of buzz around this. This is going to help provide, as I said, separating the analytical workloads and the operational workloads.
Absolutely. So cool, Idris. And thanks for bringing a demo too. Hopefully people got a chance to see just how easy this can be to set up and how it really is near real time, bringing your ETL to no ETL and bringing your hours of delay to minutes. So it's awesome to see this. And I hope people will start using it now that it's in public preview. So thanks so much.
Sure. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. So we are going to move right along. As you can see, we're only, a little bit into the show, and we've already announced so many things and shown you so many cool new things. Hopefully you're learning as you go. Feel free to engage with us. Remember, we're all here looking at the comments wherever you're streaming in from. So feel free to let us know what you think or ask any questions as we go. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about Azure SQL Database Hyperscale. Now, a lot of you have been seeing us on this Hyperscale journey, and we're only adding more things. So for that, I'm going to bring up Aditya to tell us all about what's new in Hyperscale. Thanks so much for joining us, Aditya.
Hey, Anna, thank you for having me. I'm super excited. One, Seattle is having sunshine. Can't really complain. And two, we had a great report from Principal Technologist, which shows the power of Hyperscale. As you all know, Hyperscale is cloud data, is purpose-built cloud database. We did the storage and computer disaggregations. We have spoke about it a lot. What we also did in last December is we announced a repricing for this Hyperscale, and because of that, and after that, we kind of partnered with Principal Technologies. Principal Technologies did the comparison report with Amazon Aurora, the direct compete with Azure SQL DB Hyperscale. And once they did that, what we found is Hyperscale is 68% per price better than Amazon Aurora. So that's a huge benefit.
Wow.
How we got it? It's because of the continuous efforts we are doing to make this Hyperscale extremely performant, as also making it as the price equivalent to the open source price out there. So I'm super excited with this report, Anna.
No, it's super exciting to see this, especially the reduction in price, removing the IP price. You're getting a enterprise proprietary database for the cost of open source. So
yep, and that's something super awesome. And after that, generally Azure SQL has so many price perf opportunities. So does Hyperscale too. Hyperscale recently announced serverless to GA, and I was super stoked with this because we have seen so many customers in public preview taking great advantage of this feature. And just to go through what serverless is, it's the same Hyperscale database with the power of serverless on top of it, where you can go from 2 vCores to 128 vCores according to your workload, and you will have the same database with 10 GB to 100 terabytes. You can have your same log throughput for 100 Mbps, and everything is the same. And guess what? You will have per second billing for all these resources, like how you do in the general serverless. So power of Hyperscale with serverless gives the great advantage for any startup, for any customer out there, just to put their data directly into Hyperscale and just forget about, hey, do I need to partition this? Do I need to do that? Do I need to nothing? You just be there, we'll take care of the rest. So that's what the power of serverless is. One small caveat with what the general purpose, whoever is using general purpose might not have, is auto pause and resume. We are working on it. That's not there in the GA. That's the second update that I have. And third update, again, comes to the price perf, and one of the most price perf feature that we have for entire Azure SQL DB is Elastic Pools. Dynamics, one of the bigger customer of our Azure SQL DB, runs entirely on Elastic Pools. So that's the power of Elastic Pools, because price perf comes with Elastic Pools. Now, we are announcing all the features that a general available features would have. Like, we announced zone redundancy for Elastic Pools, and we also announced fixed maintenance windows for Elastic Pools, which these are now in public preview. By the way, Elastic Pools is still in public preview. We are trying to get to GA as early as possible, but we are kind of making sure that we are getting right into the what Azure SQL DB Hyperscale today GA is with the Elastic Pools also. And one last thing, if I can, there is alerts we have got as in preview for Azure SQL DB, which means you can say, hey, before this maintenance window, please alert me. I really want to understand if when is my maintenance window per se. So those are the updates we have presented in bits, and everyone got really excited. And I'm super happy and super stoked to have presenting Hyperscale here.
Awesome, cool. Thanks so much, Aditya. There's so much going on. I have one question for you that I'm not sure the answer of. So from what I understand with Hyperscale, we have serverless now, we have Elastic Pools now. Is it possible, or are we working towards like being able to use all three of those things together in one database?
That's a good question. Thanks, Anna. Thanks for the feedback. we are really working towards making that possible. Now, when would that come? It completely depends. But serverless, what we kind of say to people is, if you don't know your workload, go use serverless. You know your workload, you want to pack all your databases, go use Elastic Pools. But you know you have an enterprise-ready workload, then go use standalone Hyperscale database, which will give you the maximum benefit. So that's what we are trying to say to customers.
Awesome, cool. Well, thanks so much. It's nice to see this pipe dream that I think we had several years ago. We're getting closer and closer to that, and I think the guidance makes sense. So thanks, Aditya, for sharing all these awesome updates with us. I put links to all this in the blog, so hopefully we'll have you on soon with some more updates.
Thank you.
All right. Moving right along, we're still in Azure SQL Database. There's still more going on. We're going to talk about some of the latest things that happened in the security space. So for that, I'm going to bring on Peter. Peter, you're no stranger to Data Exposed. We're happy to have you on the live show. Tell us what's new.
Hey, Anna. Thanks for having me again. Yeah, from the security part, we have two major announcements. And the first one is here, indeed, the revamp of the server auditing. To make it align with SQL Server and managed instance, because currently the auditing that we currently have, when you enable it on server level, actually under the background, what we're doing is we're running database level auditing. So if you have like hundreds of databases, you could end up with some performance issues. Yeah, so that's why we did the revamp, and we currently, or we will support server audit action groups as well. There will be one slight change. So currently, if you, as a target, when you choose Azure Storage account, we create subfolders for each database. That will change. So it will only be like one folder for every logical server. So customers that are using scripts to fetch, for example, the audit logs, they will need to change it a little bit, but they will get notified. But still, yeah, with this enhancement, we're going to improve performance, availability, reliability, and also supportability. We're currently deploying this internally. So Dynamics is already working with this new version of auditing. And in a couple of weeks, months, we will also make this available for everybody in the Azure portal. So Stay tuned for additional details in blog post. And my colleague Sravani, who's the PM on auditing, will, I think, have another Data Exposed with you on this as well.
Awesome, cool. Peter, one question about this. This is like, it seems like one of those scenarios where like, this isn't changing, like, well, if you already have the setup, you have to make a small change. But as far as like new folks go, or if you start using this today, like you don't have to do anything differently. We're just making it better. from a
That's
security
right. We're
performance.
just making it
Okay.
better for you, and you don't need to do anything except, like I said, if you need to fetch the files from different directories. But that's basically it. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Great to hear it, and looking forward to learning more from you and Sravani and the team. What
Yeah.
else?
Well, on the next slide, we have another announcement, which is, or what we announced last week. It's public preview. It's called Label-Based Protection for Azure SQL Database. So as you know, there is some way to do data classification, and you can also do that in Purview, right? So
Right.
you can create or extend sensitivity labels in Purview for SQL database. So what happens when you add a database into Purview? It's going to scan it, and it's going to assign sensitivity labels to your database columns. Great, but that was it. You couldn't do anything or much more with that. Well, we now introduced that label-based protection, which means that you can configure protection policies so that you can actually restrict access to that sensitive information, which means like enterprise administrators can now authorize data access for a sensitivity type to specific users or group. For example, you're not allowed to see high confidential data, but I'm in the security team, so I'm allowed to do that. So that will be possible now with these protection policies. And on top of that, when the data moves around, for example, in Power BI or Excel, the data will still be, well, the system, the data protection will still be there. So you won't be able to see even the data in Power BI because of that new policy. In the next couple of slides, I have a bunch of really quick screenshots to show what you can do. So in Purview, you need to configure a new protection policy. And the first step is, what do you want to detect? Here in this case, it's high confidential data that I want to detect. Then the next slide, Anna, where do you want to apply it? Well, in Azure SQL Server, the options that we currently have is also storage or AWS S3. Now, in this example, we're using Azure SQL Server. And then again, yeah, in the next step, what do you want to protect, or how do you want to protect it? By default, it is deny access, so we don't allow anything. If you want to see sensitive information, you need to add these users or groups to your policy. So here in this case, the admin user and security group will have access to the data. Now, once we configure that and you try as a user that doesn't have access, you will get these error messages in your, for example, Management Studio, like select permissions was denied because of that protection policy that we have implemented.
Oh, wow, cool. And it even tells you kind of which policy was impacting the user, so they can go debug if it was something that they needed or something like that, right?
Correct. Yeah. So I would say go to Purview and try it out.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Peter. We appreciate you coming on, and hopefully folks will go try this out. It seems really easy to get started, and then the impact and the purview that you have after that can be super valuable, especially when it comes to protecting sensitive data.
All right.
Cool. Thank you. All right. We are going to move right along. Just as a quick recap, I wanted to touch on the things that we covered here in the Azure SQL database space. You heard about Copilot. You heard about serverless for Hyperscale. We also enabled some zone redundancy for your named replicas in Azure SQL Hyperscale, as well as Elastic Pools being available in GovCloud. So that was an exciting thing. Aditya touched on advanced maintenance notifications for, if there's a planned maintenance event. Idris talked to us about mirroring in Fabric, and Peter talked to us about label access control with Purview. Okay, so there's a lot of things there, a lot of things we cover for Azure SQL Database. We're going to keep moving along. We're going to talk about migrations. Now, the migrations team has been hard at work making it easier for you to get from where you are to Azure SQL. For that, I'm going to bring on Sudhir to tell us all about what's going on. Hey, Sudhir, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Anna, thank you very much for having me in this session. I'm pretty excited to be here. Before we go on to what is new in the migration space, I want to land one important message on how we are simplifying the entire migration tooling ecosystem for users. Over the years, we have built multiple purpose-driven tools that cater to different phases of migration, like discovery, assessment, conversion, migration, so on and so forth. We have built tools that tailor fit into each of these phases of migration. And we ended up having a lot of tools within this portfolio. And this has put a burden, a cognitive overload on users to pick and choose the right tool for the right phase of migration. To solve this problem, what we have done is consolidated the capabilities or brought the goodness that each of the tool has to offer, combined it into two tools. One is Azure Migrate, which can do the discovery, assessment, and business case for you, and then Azure Database Migration Service, which we call DMS, and SSMA for migration. So these are the only tools that you have to ever worry about when you're thinking about migration to Azure SQL. From any source, may it be SQL Server, on-premises, or other clouds like AWS and GCP, or it can be other databases like Oracle, DB2, Sybase, so on and so forth. And these tools provide the flexibility to use it via an experience of your choice. Like if you are interested in using PowerShell and CLI, you can do so. They also offer you experiences or capabilities via Azure Portal, or if you intend to use local client-based migrations, then you can use Azure Data Studio and SSMA. So these tools let you perform migrations, like I said, from any source, may it be from on-premises infrastructure or other cloud service providers like AWS and Google Cloud Platform. Right.
Cool.
Now let me summarize this. Yeah, sorry. Please go ahead.
No, I was just saying it's cool to see this process and also see how we're simplifying the experience, kind of listening to everyone telling us there's too many tools, too many things for us to manage, and us taking that feedback to heart.
Right. Yep. Thank you very much, Anna. Let's go to the next slide. Now, I will give you a high-level overview on what are the new capabilities that we have shipped out in this migration tooling ecosystem. The first one is schema migration to Azure SQL DB Target. Earlier, a user who is performing migration from on-premises SQL Server into Azure SQL DB has to go through multiple hops, and schema migration is one of the steps where they have to step out of the Azure DMS or the migration tools experience and then do migration of the schema alone using Backpack. Gone are those days. Now, the schema migration is an inline experience within Azure Database Migration Service, and it'll be done inline within the tool itself. The second enhancement that we are going to announce is as on-premises assessments are available in Azure Migrate for SQL Server discovery and assessments. So if you're a user who have a lot of on-premises servers and want a quick assessment without having to wait for multiple days to collect all the performance data, the as on-premises assessment gives you an accurate recommendation that is at par with your on-premises configuration. So it'll, in the worst case scenario, it will be as good as the performance that you have on premises, right? And the best case scenario is sky is the limit. It can be better than what you have on premises. But if you let the performance data be collected and give the assessment tool the time it needs to monitor the data, then it can give you a right-sized SKU recommendation that fits your bill within the cloud infrastructure, right? Now, the third announcement that I'm pretty excited to make is Oracle at Scale Discovery and Assessment by Azure Migrate. So if you have thousands of Oracle servers running in your on-premises network, and if you're interested in discovering all of them at once and assessing them for right Azure data target, may it be Oracle VMs within Azure, may it be Azure Postgres or Azure SQL, you'll be able to get the assessments for any of these three Azure data targets. And fourth one is one of these things that we have done to simplify the user experience. As you know, self-hosted integration runtime is an agent that lets you perform migrations by acting as an agent within your local infrastructure. Right now, users have to go through some manual configuration steps to set it right. With this update that we are giving, single-click setup for SHIR, all you have to do is, just like it says, a single click, and it will be installed, configured, and it'll be ready for you to migrate your data in just one single click. Fifth one, and the most important, and the one that I'm very, very excited about, is new support for migration assessment experience for Arc-enabled SQL servers. For the SQL servers that you have enabled Arc, we are continuously assessing the compatibility of the SQL servers to the right Azure SQL target. And every time you open the Arc experience for a particular SQL server, we keep updating the assessment information, and we keep updating the best Azure SQL recommendation for you so that you get the latest and the greatest Azure SQL target recommendation every time you come onto a Arc-enabled SQL Server. Now, I want to show you a quick demo of how we are simplifying this ecosystem by taking you through the schema migration journey that we have. Anna, if you can please go to the next slide.
Let's take a look.
Yeah, so here, this is the Azure Database Migration Studio wizard. I've already connected to this SQL DB target to speed up the demo. Here, I'm selecting the source and the target database into which I would like to migrate. The source database here is AdventureWorks, and I'm migrating it to a demo database. Here, I have to select the schema that I want to migrate. Beautiful thing about this is Azure DMS automatically detects all the schemas that are missing in the target and tells you to migrate all of them. You can either choose to migrate all of them at once, or you can choose a specific table that you would like to get migrated. In this case, I am going to select the employee demo table to migrate the schema, to demonstrate the schema migration capabilities. So what it does is it automatically determines all the underlying objects like stored procedures, functions, and all of that, and it does a migration for you. So before you kickstart the schema migration, ensure that there is no other application connecting or writing to the database so that there are no conflicts or missing changes. Once you kick off the migration, you can check the status of the migration job by going to the migration status page. And as you can see, it will list down all the steps that are involved in the migration process. And for schema migration, the most important steps are object collection, script generation, and then the script deployment, as you can see. Once that is done, the schema migration would be completed, and that's when the data migration starts. So as you can see here, the object collection phase has completed. We've collected 180 objects. Script generation phase is going on. We are almost there, 99.9%. And now we are into the script deployment phase, almost there, and we have hit an error. And that is not a blocking error. There is a statement, unsupported statement option, due to which we errored out, but it doesn't stop your migration job, and it will let you continue through, so that all your data and schema is migrated completely. And at the end, it'll give you a status that it has completed, but with errors, and it'll let you view those errors. Once the schema migration job is completed, as you can see here, we will start copying the data, and you will see the status of the data copy as well completed. Yep, that is a quick demo of schema migration to show how simple it is with Azure DMS. With
Awesome,
that, I would
cool.
like to hand it over to you, Anna.
Awesome. Thanks so much for coming on and showing us all the migration updates. What I think the coolest bit is that you can tell how we're investing really well in this understanding your workload. I think you saw it in SKU Recommender a while back. Then you see it with as on premises, and now you see it with the Arc-enabled assessment. So it's really cool to kind of see it full circle, but also how we're making it more streamlined and more end-to-end as we go.
Yep.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Sudhir. All right, so we're going to move right along. We got a couple more things remaining, but these are really exciting things around tooling, developers, and some other things that I think are pretty exciting for my pick of the month. So we're going to get right into it, starting with tools. For that, I'm going to bring up Aaron Stellato to talk about all of your favorite tools, or actually to talk about specifically your favorite tools. Hey, Aaron.
Hello. I can't believe this wasn't like your favorite pick or whatever, but that's okay. That's okay. It's all good. It's all good. So if you want to go forward to the next slide, we are of course talking about SSMS, SQL Server Management Studio version 20, which GA'd back on March 19th. So a couple weeks ago, before conferences. Hard to remember that. And if you can bring the next bullet in here for me, that would be great. The big thing for SSMS 20 was a switch from Microsoft Data SQL Client 3 to version 5. And this brought some security improvements, gives us full support for SQL Server 2022 and TDS 8. So the next screenshot here, if you pull that in for us, Anna, has where you would enable this for your SQL Server 2022 instance. So you'll notice here in the dropdown, it is specific to for strict encryption. That's only going to be in SQL 2022. Those of you that are on 2019 and earlier will just see force encryption as an option. So for those that want to be more secure end to end, you can do this now in SSMS. So this is this is a release of SSMS that supports SQL 2022 and earlier, just like SSMS 19 does. And if you bring the next bullet in for me here, the big thing that we did to support this, in addition to the change to the driver underneath, as well as some of the other dependencies, is we've changed the connection dialog. So the screenshot on the left is SSMS 19. The screenshot on the right is SSMS 20. So for those of you who are used to having to go to the connection properties to select the encryption option and trust server certificate, we pulled that to the front to make it much easier, much more discoverable for users. Now, the biggest thing about this release, besides this additional security and these connection changes, is that it's a breaking change, meaning when you create a new connection, a brand new connection to a SQL Server, the default value will be, can you go back to that real quick for me, Anna, that screenshot? The default value, which you see here in the screenshot on the right, thank you, is mandatory. And so that might catch a few folks out. It used to be optional or false in earlier releases, but we have that changes as part of that driver change to mandatory. And this means that if you're going to use mandatory or strict, you have to have a certificate installed. And if you don't have a trusted certificate, then you need to use the trust server certificate option. You need to enable that if you are connecting with mandatory encryption. So if you go ahead, the other links that you had in here in this slide. SSMS 20 is the blog post that announces the release. And then the SSMS connection link takes you to a new connection page that we pulled together to provide some more details about these changes. So hopefully folks embrace this release. It may take some time to migrate to it, and that's totally cool. Like if you need to play with it in a UAT or QA or test environment first, feel free. And as a reminder, you can install SSMS 20 side by side with 19 or 18. So you're not going to lose any functionality or be blocked if somebody has trouble connecting with 20.
Awesome. Cool. Lots of good stuff coming in this, especially from a security perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I have the pleasure of working with Aaron very closely. And so, Aaron, I know you've also been doing some roadmap blogs.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give us like a little spiel? And then I think they can get to it from the SSMS 20 as well, right?
Yeah, the SSMS 20 link there takes you to the blog post that announces the release and also includes the roadmap. So we had a lot of folks ask for a roadmap for SSMS, and I'm thrilled that we could finally share that. So SSMS 21 will be our next release, and this is a big one. So if you don't see a lot from us for a while, that's by design, okay? Because for SSMS 21, we have to go to the VS 2022 shell. So some folks have noticed that SSMS might look a little old or outdated. I've heard it called abandonedware. It is not abandoned. We are investing in it. We are not deprecating it. I promise, right? I wouldn't write a roadmap if we were not committed to this product. So we are going to the VS 2022 shell. We are going to revamp that connection experience even further. So the changes that we made here were really to get folks through these changes in 20, but we're going to redesign that entire thing for this next release. And going to, as an aside, going to the VS 2022 shell means that we get to 64-bit, which folks have been asking for. We're very excited that that's going to be available. We'll also have a new installer. And with this new installer, it means that you won't have to download the 500 and some meg SSMS install file every single time you want to update. You'll just do that one time, and then we'll be able to do updates within the application. So those are the big things that we're working on. They're not trivial, but the engineers are already moving forward with that. So we can't wait to share a preview release with folks.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks so much, Aaron. Really exciting things
Yep.
coming ahead. You already got a cheer on the 64-bit
Yeah.
in the comments. So
Yep.
yeah, we're working on it. And thanks so much, Aaron.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Okay. So we're going to move on. We have one more guest today, and then I've got a couple of my own updates. But for this, I'm bringing on Carlos to talk all about the Data API Builder. And some folks maybe have heard of this, but this is something specifically new that we're announcing, and I'm looking forward, Carlos, to learning what it is.
Thanks for having me, Anna. So yeah, this is new. This is a combination of technologies, I would say. So could you please go to the next slide? So yeah, DevContainers. For those that are not familiar with DevContainers, this is a technology to allows you to run a containerized environment that comes with everything you need to start your development or your application. It comes with the applications you want to be on part of this package. Comes with these different and specific tools or libraries you need for your code base. And the way you do this is using this devcontainer.json file where you define the different containers, tools, and libraries you need. So imagine the potential here that you can build your own templates for different code bases for different applications. And what I'm doing here is using the power of dev containers to build a dev container that you can use to try Data API Builder and SQL Server. So in the next slide, I have a brief explanation of what is Data API Builder. If you're not familiar with that, it's an open source .NET tool that you can use to build REST and GraphQL endpoint for your databases. And it is very simple. It uses a configuration file that reads those entities from your database, can be tables, views, and stored procedures. And in this demo, I'm going to be using SQL Server, but you can use MySQL, Postgres, or Cosmos DB. It comes with full support for different functionalities and from the backend, as you can see. But the main goal of Data API Builder is to increase the reduce the time for your developers to build applications instead of taking care of repetitive tasks as the ones you were listing here. And this is the example today, and you can find these dev container on this URL, aks.ms/try-dab. And it comes with all these things that I'm listing in this slide. So it comes with a container for the database. That means that it's going to run SQL Server on Docker, and also comes with Data API Builder in a different container. This is the container, the base container of my environment that comes with .NET and different tools and extensions I included for VS Code. So as you guess, the prerequisite is to have VS Code and Docker installed on your machine or on that machine on the cloud that you want to use for this. And in the right hand side is just like a structure of this folder. The most important thing here is that you can modify this. This is just a template, a sample you can take, and all you need to do is take a look at that SQL folder and modify the scripts that you want to be deployed at the time the container gets started. So let's take a look at this in action in the next slide. Thank you. So as I said, first thing you have to do is navigate to aks.ms/try-dev. And from this repo, you have a couple of options. You can click on that button to initialize Visual Studio Code in your local machine and get the dev container up and running, or create a code space from GitHub as I did. Once you do that, Visual Studio Code will go into this process of building the environment for you. This is a containerized environment. Let's remember that. So it's going to build a Docker image for you. In this case, we are adding two, the one for .NET and the one for the database. So you can see here that everything is running. My containers are created. Is configuring the code space. And the next step is because I want an application to be like alive here and test, I'm deploying a database. So I'm deploying a sample database called library. And then after my database gets deployed, I am starting Data API Builder from that configuration file that is just reading the different entities from my database. And you can see that it comes with the extension already, the connection string, and I'm just connecting to a database inside VS Code. And here I'm going to run just a couple of queries just to make sure the data is there, that the deployment was completed. And of course, as you can see, we get data back for our authors table. So the next step is to test our application. So right here, I'm testing the endpoint for Data API Builder and just testing the books and author and endpoints entities on my REST API endpoint, and everything works as expected. So you can try this out in this URL once again and share some feedback, comment with us. We're looking forward to build more dev containers for you that maybe will speed up your development purposes.
Awesome, cool. That was a super cool demo. I'm gonna go try it out as soon as we get done with this live stream. It seems like really easy to set up, but also really easy to just like get to work, right?
Exactly. That's the main goal. You don't have to install and come with a list of huge prerequisites. Now you can just pack everything in a single container, run it on your local machine or in the cloud, and you can just start building applications around Azure SQL. So that's how easy it is.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks so much, Carlos.
Of course. Thank you.
All right, folks, what a show we've had so far. I just have a couple other things I want to touch on. An important sneak peek / ask for all of you tuning in. But let me tell you a little bit about what's new in the tools and developer space. So Aaron told us all about SSMS 20, so you should check that out. In the blog, I put links to all of our release notes. That's the best way to stay up to date on what we released in the most recent release or the release before that. So something for you to check out. Azure Data Studio 1.48 is now available. We released that in February. SQL Server Data Tools, or SSDT, as many of you know it. We released a preview with Visual Studio that includes ARM64 support updates. A lot of people have been asking for that, so check that out as well. A new version of SQL Package or DACFX was released. So we've got some blogs that I linked to, as well as the release notes if you want to learn more about what's in there. One of the exciting things to me is around Parquet support, specifically around being able to import and export with a DAC pack and a set of Parquet files. I think this is really exciting. It's going to lend for some interesting scenarios as we move into this world, or we're already in this world where Parquet is front and center. So please take a look at that. It's also something that is greatly going to expedite the import process for many of you doing that today. And Carlos talked about the DevContainers for Data API Builder and SQL Server 2022. A couple other updates. Actually, some of these are really big updates, but we weren't able to get a speaker on this time around, but you should definitely go look into these. The first is the Azure SQL Trigger for Azure Functions. This is now generally available. It leverages change data capture to do this and help trigger actions based on things happening in your SQL database. So please check that one out. It's been asked for a lot. It just adds on to the Azure SQL bindings functionality that we have for Azure Functions. Database Watcher for Azure SQL. This is a big one. I should have put together a slide, but for those of you who remember SQL Insights a couple of years ago at this point, basically we've been working on and reiterating and listening to you about how can we build something that enables you to watch all of your Azure SQL databases, whether they're SQL Server and VM, Azure SQL Managed Instance, or Azure SQL Database. We finally have a public preview for you to go try this out. Go check it out. We've taken a lot of feedbacks about the VM that used to be required and just overall making this a really great experience to at scale monitor and find the actions you need to take for your databases. For SQL Server, I know a lot of you, probably all of you, are still using this today, in addition to some of your hybrid or cloud databases. But there's been several CUs released over the past couple of months, so just ask you go check those out. One of them was a security update included with a Microsoft SQL Client update, so check that out as well. We also released some updates for SCOM management packs if you're using those. Now heading into my pick of the month. As everyone knows, I always do a pick of the month. And my pick this month is related to Fabric Conference. Weird pick of the month, but it's something I went to last week and attended and just loved the energy. There was a ton of people from the community, from the Fabric community, as well as from the SQL community. And especially in this SQL and Fabric session that we had, exploring some of the things we're thinking about and the things we have done, like mirroring that Idris talked about earlier in the show. We are collecting interest for some of the things we're working on. So if you have an NDA at Microsoft or okay to sign an NDA with Microsoft, we'd love for you to sign up for our interest form so we can share more with you around what we're doing and, more importantly, get your feedback on what you would like us to do. So with that being said, that's really the gist of our show. I want to make sure you remember that you can get all the updates at, if I can find the link. Sorry, folks. Thank you. You can get all the updates at aka.ms/news update. This blog is live right now, so you can go hit this URL and see everything that we just talked about with a link attached to it. If you don't follow Data Exposed, I recommend checking out our YouTube channel, subscribing. We get updates. We post videos every Thursday and once a month on Tuesdays with the MVP community. It's a great way for us to engage, let you know what's new. And just a sneak preview, we will be doing a May 4th episode. So every year we do a May the 4th Be With You episode. We've done it, I think, like 3 years now. So this is going to be our 4th year doing it. May 4th falls on a Saturday, so we won't do that to you and ruin your weekends with your family. But we will be having a May the 4th episode. So stay tuned for that. With all that being said, thanks so much for tuning in, and we hope to see you next time on Data Exposed.